Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, or anywhere inside or outside the Fourth Reserve District. I'm Heidi Gartland, Chief Government and Community Relations Officer at University Hospitals, and I am so honored to serve as the Chair of the Board of Directors of the Cleveland Fed and to be chairing the search for the bank's next president and CEO. It is a privilege to be able to serve my community, the nation, and to be able to lead this process. Today is the second of two sessions where we are providing the community with an opportunity to learn about the Federal Reserve search for our next president and to provide a transparent look into, number one, the important role and responsibilities of the Federal Reserve president, how the search process works and what type of qualities and characteristics we're looking for, and to share how the community members can get involved and make candidate recommendations now through January 31st. Toward that end, we have posted the presidential search page on clevelandfed.org, and we would like to make our process as transparent to the public as possible. As you know, public engagement is very important to the selection of the Federal Reserve president. This individual represents me, you, and all of our district at the Federal Open Markets Committee where interest rate decisions are made. On the Federal Reserve website page, clevelandfed.org, this page contains plenty of information about the search, including who is on the search committee, the detailed position profile, and a confidential email address where you can nominate candidates. Serving as the president of the Federal Reserve Bank is a unique role, and hearing from you, the community, about the value in this position will help the search committee make an informed decision. Serving as the president of the Federal Reserve Bank is something that we hold very high, and we would like to receive questions from you. We have some that have been submitted in advance, and we'll start with that after introductions. At any time, however, during the program, you can submit a question for our panelists using the Q&A feature on the Zoom feature. We will be grabbing those questions and answering them later in the live stream. Let me set the stage first with a short video about the selection process itself.
The Federal Reserve System, our nation's central bank, comprises 12 independent regional reserve banks across the country and the Board of Governors in Washington, D.C. Each reserve bank has its own board of directors and president. The board provides important information on regional business and credit conditions in support of monetary policy making, and it oversees management of the reserve bank. The president is the chief executive officer and is responsible for all of the bank's activities, including monetary policy, bank supervision, economic research, payment services, distribution of coin and currency to financial institutions, and more. What happens when a reserve bank needs a new president? The selection process is laid out in federal law rooted in the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Each reserve bank has a 9-member board with 3 kinds of directors, Class A, B, and C. The Board of Directors forms a search committee composed of its eligible Class B and Class C directors. These directors represent the public and are not affiliated with regulated banks or financial institutions. Since Class A directors are bankers, they are not permitted to take part in the selection of a reserve bank's president, nor are they allowed to sit on the search committee. Typically, the search committee works with an outside search firm to identify a diverse, national pool of candidates with an appropriate blend of leadership, knowledge, and experience. The committee also gathers public input and candidate nominations during the search. Qualified candidates might come from higher education, nonprofits, financial institutions, or other businesses, or from within the Federal Reserve System itself. One trait they all share is a desire to serve the public. After gathering stakeholder input, interviewing candidates and evaluating their qualifications, the search committee forwards the top candidates to the Board of Governors in Washington for a review that includes one-on-one meetings with each governor. Then, the Reserve Bank's eligible Class B and C directors, the non-bank directors, with sign-off from the Board of Governors, select the new Reserve Bank president. The new president then joins their Federal Reserve System colleagues in promoting price stability and maximum employment, serving the American people as part of our nation's central bank.
Well, I think you will hopefully agree with me that this is an incredibly fascinating process. And as the board of directors, we have appointed a presidential search committee earlier this fall. And our committee is full of our 5 Class B and Class C directors. And I'm pleased today to be joined by fellow director Darrell McNair, who's on the panel with me today. Darrell is the president and chief executive officer of MVP Plastics and a Class B member of the Cleveland Fed's board of directors. Our other panelist, who I'm happy to join us, is John Harpole, who is with Spencer Stuart. This is the executive search firm that we have hired to manage our search, and Spencer Stuart is a trusted partner to us, and their firm has been one of several who have supported recent Federal Reserve Bank president searches. And supporting today's conversation is Margie Wright McGowan. She is Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resource Officer at the Cleveland Fed. And she will facilitate our discussion today as Darrell, John, and I discuss questions we've received from the community.
Thank you, Heidi. What a great introduction. And I know we're all learning so much more with every one of these sessions, and the video was excellent as well. So welcome, everyone. So it's a pleasure to support you and the entire search committee in this important process. And that's the first question that I have to cover. Why is the search so important? And Heidi, if you could kick us off, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you, Margie. Well, we certainly recognize that this is an incredible opportunity. The job of the Federal Reserve Bank president is something that doesn't happen very often in this country. There are only 12 of them, and they do not come open very often. The importance of this role is why we are running a national search, and we want to source a diverse set of candidates. The Cleveland Fed has over 1,000 employees and carries out critical functions for our American public. We do things such as bank supervision, economic research, circulation of cash, community development outreach, and the support for the U.S. Treasury. The president sets the tone and standards for all employees doing work on behalf of the public. The Cleveland Fed and its president is an important resource for our region. It means we have a seat at the table. The Cleveland Fed's president makes sure that economic concerns of people who live in Ohio, parts of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky are considered and represented on the national level. Our search takes into consideration public feedback, and today's session is essential to help us answer some of those questions and invite you as the community members to share candidate recommendations. Now I'd like to turn it over to my fellow committee member, Darrell.
Thank you, Heidi. The Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland is part of the community, not just because of the employees that call Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and West Virginia home, but because of the bank's work to foster a vibrant economy in the 4th District. Each regional Federal Reserve Bank provides an important public service through its research and community development efforts. I've been able to not just also participate in that service at the Cleveland Fed through my years on the bank's Business Advisory Council and now on the board of directors. I'm a Class B director representing the manufacturing sector. My business is based in Middlefield, Ohio, but we have a location in Texas and partnerships with other domestic and international manufacturers. This gives me a unique perspective to bring to the table for the Cleveland Fed, and an important one. My company primarily serves the automotive industry. This is deeply entrenched for the 4th District, but one undergoing a lot of change. Being able to articulate what is changing for manufacturers in this district is part of my role on the board. The Cleveland Fed accumulates an immense amount of data to interpret and inform its monetary policy. Making sure that we have a regional Fed president who can synthesize all this data and represent it on a national level is important to me both personally and professionally. Being part of the search committee is an honor and another opportunity for me to give back and use my experience and knowledge of our business environment to serve my community. As we need help from all parts of the 4th District because there are diverse perspectives and experiences across all the states. Your feedback and candid recommendations are important. We are committed to conducting a search that's robust, transparent, fair, and inclusive. Hosting today's forum is a part of that commitment. So thank you for your time today. We look forward to your questions, and if you so choose, your recommendations for candidates over the next few weeks. I'll now turn it over to Margie.
Thank you so much, Heidi and Darrell. That was really helpful and a great way to get us started. So I'm going to shift now and talk about the qualifications for the job. And I'm going to start with you, Darrell. What qualifications is the committee looking for in economics and monetary policy making?
Sure, thanks, Margie. We need someone who really understands monetary policy and how it impacts Americans. This doesn't mean that a president has to have a PhD in economics. They must be able to apply experience in finance, economics, and commerce to inform the monetary policy debate, to support the economic research of the Cleveland Fed, and to provide guidance and recommendations to Cleveland Fed's board of directors with respect to setting the discount rate. Monetary policy affects all of us. It affects what your car costs, what your house costs, and so many other things. So the impact of decisions that are made by the Reserve Bank presidents shows up in our daily life. Equally representing the 4th District at the FOMC table is one of the most important parts of the job. That's where interest rate decisions are made to help keep our economy on track. The president needs to be conversant in economic research. They need to be able to gain insightful regional economic intelligence across all communities and sectors in our district. They need to contribute those insights and independent views at meetings of the FOMC, as well as public conversations. Because the president serves as a primary public figure in representing bank transparently, the bank must represent the bank transparently, credibly, and regularly, not only at the FOMC table, but also in communities throughout the bank's district and beyond.
Thanks, Darrell. That was really helpful. I appreciate it. It gave us some insight from your own personal experience as well. So Heidi, I'm going to turn it over to you now. We're going to switch and talk about community outreach. And you have a background in community outreach, which is especially informative for this search committee. Can you share what ideal knowledge and experience the search committee is looking for in the areas of communication and relationship building?
Thanks, Margie. Sure. We are definitely looking for somebody who is a strong communicator with a distinct voice. This is going to need to be a person who has a compelling ability to deliver their message, both at the FOMC table and with the public we serve in the 4th District. A Reserve Bank president has a very powerful megaphone. This person's views are widely in demand across both financial media and financial markets. But not only does the president need to be somebody that is able to understand macroeconomics and monetary policy, they need the ability to communicate complex ideas to a broader audience. And we are, of course, looking for someone who can communicate clearly for what the Fed's actions mean to people on Main Street. The president must be a dynamic public speaker who meets with district and top-tier financial media regularly to explain the Federal Reserve actions and the economy. And the current Federal Reserve President, Loretta Mester, has set a high bar in this area. Like President Mester and all Reserve Bank presidents, candidates need to demonstrate that they are skilled in building trusted and productive partnerships. The president spends ample time cooperating and communicating and collaborating productively with the bank's board of directors and other Reserve Bank presidents, fellow members of the FOMC, and board of governors at the U.S. Department of Treasury. You know, they also need to be actively able to listen and engage with industry leaders and community leaders to understand economic conditions across the bank's district. And honestly, it's something that will be important will be to demystify what the Fed's policies are, what monetary policy, and to build public trust.
Thanks, Heidi. And one thing I'll echo is it is a very high bar that Dr. Mester has set and really differentiated the Cleveland Fed in this area. So I appreciate you highlighting that. And now I'm going to talk about something that's near and dear to a lot of folks' heart, the economic conditions of the 4th District. So could both of you talk about what economic conditions and environment exist in the 4th District that the president will have to understand and represent at the national level? I'm going to start with you, Heidi, and then Darrell, if you could add on, that'd be great.
Okay, first, I'd like to say, and I believe this wholeheartedly, I've lived in the district for, I won't say how many years, but I've certainly lived here almost all my life, and it is a great place to work and live. The 4th District comprises Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, eastern parts of Kentucky, and the northern panhandle of West Virginia. And I think we'd all agree that this is a beautiful part of America and offers an amazing balance of both cities and countryside. The territory, of course, in this district contains a wide range of industries, from manufacturing to medicine to advanced technology. And this is across a variety of communities, including older industrial cities, growing suburbs, and of course, rural Appalachia areas. One of the hallmarks of the 4th District is our low cost of living and our strong logistical infrastructure. This makes it a great place to put down roots, whether they're raising a family or starting and nurturing a business. In every corner of our region, you'll find diverse people with different races, ethnicities, thoughts, approaches, and beliefs. And these are talented individuals who want to participate fully in the economy. This means that the president must understand that helping them do that and what that might take and what are the barriers for their prosperity. And lastly, at the Cleveland Fed, the incoming president will have a unique opportunity to travel the district and to speak with community members firsthand. This contributes to the bank's regional analysis and our work there, our community development research. And this is something that the bank is known for in the area of small business, affordable housing, and workforce development. I don't know, Darrell, if you have another additional point of view, if you could share.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. No, and as you, certainly all of my adult life has been spent in the 4th District. And I can honestly say I love the 4th District, for all it has to offer. And being in the manufacturing space, there's been major investments in the 4th District, expansions in the advanced technology, production of computer chips, and cutting edge green energy industry. Manufacturing jobs, which declined at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, are coming back steadily. So it'll be important for the president to be conversant and inquisitive about topics such as these and other growth sectors. I mentioned earlier that my business is manufacturing. Part of my job as a director is to inform the bank president about trends in that sector, including how tight the labor market is and what's happening with pricing. The labor market insight is critical to supporting the Fed in fulfilling what's called the dual mandate. The Federal Reserve System is charged with pursuing the economic goals of maximum employment and price stability. It does this by using a variety of policy tools to manage financial conditions, also known as conducting monetary policy. Price stability, you're likely familiar with, that's ensuring that inflation remains low, and Lord knows we all want that, and is stable over the long run. The Fed has been hard at work on that. Maximum employment varies over time with business conditions, demographics, labor market regulations, and other factors. It can be thought of as the highest level of employment that the economy can sustain over time. Now, pursuing these complementary goals takes a lot of data and information from a wide variety of sources. Each president is charged with collecting data and information in their respective districts to create the most informed picture for decision making. So the bank president must be able to take all this information from contacts across a variety of sectors, industries, and synthesize it into a narrative that they can share at the FOMC table. And it's a challenging but a vital one. And I guess I'll turn it over to John at this point. John?
So, John,
thank you very much, sir. Oh, sorry, Margie. Go ahead. You're doing great.
No, thanks, and thanks, Joe. That was so helpful. I wanted to just jump in real quick and say thanks to John and everyone at Spencer Stuart for their partnership. You've really been with us every step of the way, and so thank you, and thanks for joining us. And I'm going to now talk more about logistics of the search, because I know that's something we receive a lot of questions on. So could you share with the audience what a typical timeline looks like and how your firm supports the search committee in conducting a diverse and inclusive search for qualified candidates?
Sure, Margie, and I'm going to flip that around a little bit and tell you a little bit about how we're going to find an inclusive search. So Spencer Stuart has been finding leading executives to fill roles in industry, education, public policy, and in community work for the last 70 years. We are honored to be able to support the Federal Reserve District of Cleveland at that time, and to that end, we've assembled a team which has backgrounds that have covered over 10 presidential searches and who all have ties to the 4th District. What we're hoping to do in supporting the board and the search committee specifically is to facilitate a broad outreach across the nation. Part of that facilitation and engagement process is this town hall, as well as other advisory board and cross-district outreach efforts. By doing so and by having a very open, inclusive, and transparent process, we will hopefully maximize the amount of suggestions and nominations, which will facilitate the goals of not only having the broadest range of choice for the search committee, but also continue to advance the goal of having a diverse and vibrant Federal Reserve System. As far as a timeline is concerned, that is really what we're really focused on is not a hard date. We have systems in place, the banking system in place to, have the patience to identify the highest caliber person to serve the 4th District in the future. So again, with that patience in mind, we encourage those of you watching today, and you'll hear this message from me several times over, to actively seek out the website, find other opportunities to engage, and to nominate freely and broadly into this process. Margie?
Thanks, John. And just so you all know, if you see people handing me cards, we're getting questions in, so that's what's going on behind the scenes. That was a very helpful overview, and I'm going to go a little deeper and now talk about some of the specific restrictions that apply to candidates that look for this job. So in the role of president and CEO, we have to have the utmost integrity and commitment to public service. We've heard that from Darrell and Heidi. Can you walk us through the restrictions that all candidates will be held to as we look at them for this role?
Right. So, there is the Federal Reserve System is it is essential for its leaders. Federal Reserve System actually provides confidence to the United States financial system overall. And it is essential that the leaders of the system are above question, above reproach in terms of their personal and extended personal financial dealings, business dealings, and convey a strong sense of fairness. To that end, the Fed has a very strict series of ethical guidelines. All candidates will be asked and will affirm that they have a thorough understanding of these guidelines. And these guidelines will be reiterated throughout the search process. But also clear to point out that the financial restrictions on Fed leaders are very significant. This will affect not just the candidates and ultimately the placement, but their direct family members and close associations. You should be reassured that by the time a Fed president is selected, they will have been thoroughly vetted and corporately divested of any potentially either actual or potentially conflicting financial entanglements, as well as any other governing entanglements. So it is a challenge for those of you who are considering applying, but it is a challenge that is worth it because it's done in the service of the nation. And to us, there is no higher calling. Margie?
Thanks, John. And that, a lot of people don't fully understand all of those rules and the stringent process that goes on behind the scenes. So thanks for walking us through that. I'm gonna pivot over now to Darrell. As a proud business owner in the 4th District, what types of qualities and capabilities will you be looking for in the next president of the Cleveland Fed who will be representing the economic interests of our community to the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee? Darrell?
Yeah, thanks, Margie, and certainly echo John's comments with respect to the ethics and the financial transparency. But from my perspective, the president must also command respect and credibility from policymakers. And what does this look like? It looks like a strong, practical understanding of data, being articulate and informed on a broad range of economic policy and banking issues, including trends related to stability, integrity, and efficiency of the nation's monetary policy, financial and payment systems. They have to anticipate key issues or risk, provide fresh insights as an objective, pragmatic, and an independent thinker. I think Heidi emphasized the importance of strong communication skills, and I'll build on that. The president must be persuasive, an informed participant in rigorous policy deliberations, and then they have to be able to communicate the decision clearly and credibly across the 4th District and beyond. Intellectual curiosity is also very important, and a willingness to engage within the community. The Cleveland Fed president routinely talks with people who live and work here. Those relationships help the Fed learn about economic concerns and conditions on the ground in real time, which is very important. To learn the story, data alone doesn't tell it all. This means interacting with various business advisory councils that the Cleveland Fed has, as well as participating with business and community groups throughout the 4th District to hear how monetary policy is playing out for our friends and neighbors. And lastly, they must also be dedicated to creating a vision and strategy that ensures that the Cleveland Fed and the Federal Reserve System remains focused on discussions and decisions making around policies that serve the public interest. So Margie, I'll turn it back over to you now.
Thanks, Darrell. That was so helpful. I appreciate it. Heidi, all right, let's talk about now leading the Fed Bank. So as you said, there's more than 1,000 employees. And one of the questions that came in was about what leadership qualities are expected of the president. Can you share what you'll be looking for in candidates when it comes to leading people?
Sure, thank you. Well, obviously the bank is, and the role of president is a huge job. The bank, of course, is an organization with both complex and challenging responsibilities as well as very sensitive responsibilities. I know I will be looking for a leader that holds themselves with the highest standards and models that for our employees. This will be an individual that is able to build a team. And I think that we've already established that the responsibilities of this job are vast. The president must be a dedicated talent developer. They have to be somebody who wants to foster effective teamwork and knows how to do that at our bank. And they must be able to identify how to recruit and develop strong and diverse set of leaders across our organization. So I'll be asking candidates about what types of teams they've built in the past and how they would approach teamwork. That's going to be a really important piece for our very complex bank. We're also looking for a leader who's known to be generous with their time and respectful of others. This is going to also need to be a person, we have many ears, and so they have to be a good listener both on Main Street and within the bank. And this will, of course, set an important tone with our employees. But of course, we will also need somebody with an incredibly strong sense of purpose. This is a public service position, somebody who has priorities that understand that role of public service and has, of course, high emotional intelligence and self-awareness because they serve not only the public, but they have to be there to inspire our employees. We're also looking for somebody that is able to really be part of our community. And I know it was interesting, Darrell talked about his business advisory council, which he was on. I was on the community advisory council. And so, this is somebody who deals not only with business leaders, but community leaders. So I'll turn it back over to you, Margie.
Thanks, Heidi. And that's all music to my ears. I'm a Fed employee, first and foremost. So, and these are also areas where Dr. Mester excelled. So I think finding someone that can continue that journey will be very important. So thank you for that insight. So John, obviously this is a really big job. We've heard a lot of different components of it today. Can you share with our audience how they can participate in the search for qualified candidates?
Absolutely. There will be the video you saw at the head of the screen, as well as some frequently asked questions are available on the Cleveland Bank's website. You'll see it here as presidential search at Cleve. cleve.frb.org, cleve.frb.org. If you'd like to apply, if you wish to nominate others for the role, on this same presidential search page, you'll find a link that is dedicated inbox. It is Cleveland Fed President at spencerstuart.com. Those submissions will be reviewed by our team as well as shared with the search committee and will be part of our broader deliberative process. Finally, if you also look at that President web page, you will find the position description for the role that will give you additional insights in support of many of the comments that Darrell and Heidi have shared with you this morning. Heidi?
Thank you. Okay, well, Margie, I understand a question has come in from the attendees during the registration process, and the question is really around how does the Federal Reserve Bank foster economic inclusivity and work with stakeholders to develop a DEI lending policy supporting our minority and small businesses? That's obviously a fabulous question and a very important one for the role of the Fed. The Cleveland Fed and other reserve banks do perform research and outreach around the topic of economic inclusion because it affects the performance of the economy and the financial system. Research by the Federal Reserve banks help foster the understanding of the similarities and differences in economic opportunity and economic outcomes across diverse and demographic groups, industries, and areas of the country to help assess the strength of the economy and its long-run growth potential. This work can help the Cleveland Fed and the Federal Reserve System determine what policies are appropriate, to identify the potential consequences of policy actions across our areas, and also to assess whether policy actions are actually achieving their goals. I will tell you that President Loretta Mester has been a staunch supporter of research and economic inclusion to improve the understanding of economic and financial environment in which monetary, regulatory, and payment policies are set. And we believe a search and this search committee, this is such an important part of our course to continue in the work of our bank. Of course, regarding small businesses, the Cleveland Fed houses our Small Business Credit Survey. This is an annual survey that provides a national sample of small businesses or firms with fewer than 500 employees, and it is aimed at providing insight into firms' financing and debt needs and experiences. It reports focus on attention on growing and changing segments of the small business market, including startups, minority-owned firms, women-owned firms, rural firms, and self-employed and gig workers. The output of this survey, such as the 2023 report on startup firms owned by people of color, are made available to the public, including businesses, policymakers who could use these findings in their policy decisions or in how they recommend actions. The Small Business Credit Survey provides insights on financing needs and gaps. The survey tracks a fixed set of questions on business financing needs, credit applications, credit outcomes, and this looks over time. This is another example of the importance of the Cleveland Fed and its regional reserve banks in fostering objective research and analysis to improve economic outcomes. Finally, the Fed is one of 3 federal banking regulators responsible for implementing the Community Reinvestment Act. Bank supervisors at the Cleveland Fed work with banks in our district to ensure that the goal of the Community Reinvestment Act is met. Banks also we make sure that they serve their entire community, and in particular that the credit needs of low and moderate income areas are taken care of. Bank reports, small business loans under the CRA are also important to bring this back to the question of how the Reserve Bank can work with stakeholders to support minority-owned businesses and small businesses. The CRA is an important policy tool that can influence the equity in small business lending. I'll turn it back to Darrell. Thank you.
Okay. Margie, I believe we have another question.
We do, yeah. So Darrell, we did, and Heidi, thank you. Thank you so much for that in-depth response. It was very helpful. And we do have questions coming in. So Darrell, I'm gonna ping one your way. It's about the president's first 100 days and how they might look. Can you share your thoughts on that from a director's perspective?
Certainly. And as with any big job, you can't underestimate how important the first 100 days are. Because a candidate, whether that candidate comes from within the district or outside, it'd be important that individual hits the ground running and hit the ground hard. They'll need to travel the district, to all corners of the district, to meet the people who they're representing at the FOMC table. This includes not just the financial leaders and the business leaders, also includes community leaders and those individuals leading grassroots community efforts to improve the economy at large. And just as important, they need to meet the employees like yourself, Margie, of the Fed to introduce themselves and learn about how the work gets done at the bank, because it is a machine. Now, what I know in my tenure with the Fed is that it's a diverse and inclusive culture. So I know that the individual that ultimately is selected will be welcomed with open arms by the employees. And they'll want to get to know them. It'll be a two-way street so they can work collaboratively together to carry out the mission. And most importantly, this individual needs to listen openly and work on behalf of the public, because it is, as Heidi mentioned, a public service role. So Margie, I'll turn it back over to you if there are any other questions.
Thanks, Darrell. And I can tell you the Cleveland Fed employees are very proud of their work in Cleveland, of course, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh, and they will be very excited and ready to share that work with the new president. So thank you for that great answer. So John, how does the search committee identify and evaluate any potential conflicts of interest for the candidate?
Thank you very much. There are very clear guidelines for Federal Reserve presidents that the board and BNC directors will follow, as we will, of course, at Spencer Stuart. One of the things that we will do in our process is make sure that those guidelines are introduced almost immediately with the candidates who are meeting the search committee early in the process. This will also include engagement with the bank's general counsel so that there's additional clarity interpreting any questions that candidates may have. And then throughout the process, there are multiple points where we'll work with candidates to identify any potential conflicts. The bank and the council, as well as our team at Spencer Stuart, will work with potential leaders in finding the time and the framework where they can make appropriate adjustments or divestments as necessary. And then finally, every candidate will go through an independent background check as they get towards the finalist process with multiple layers of engagement from an independent source.
Thanks, John. Very thorough, and certainly something you've had experience with is doing other Fed president searches. So Heidi, talk to us about what makes this job exciting. If a candidate asked, why would they take this job over any other? What would you say to them?
I think I'd say simply that there's nothing like a Federal Reserve Bank president except a Federal Reserve Bank president. There are only 12 of these positions across our country. So I would say it's an incredibly intellectually stimulating job. This is going to be an individual who I think should be able to develop and advance the vision and strategy of our Cleveland Fed. I think that pushing that forward would be something incredibly invigorating. And this role also has impact more broadly on the Federal Reserve System. So for qualified leaders who seek to serve the public, this job delivers that, of course, in spades. And the president supports every American by working to respond to ongoing challenges in the economy with effective monetary policy and ensuring the strength of the country's financial system. So I think it's a great job, and I hope we have a lot of candidates.
It's an awesome job, and you know, such an important job where you serve so many stakeholders that you've covered again and again today. So thank you for that. So I have two more questions. First one I'm going to send to Darrell, and second one to John, so you know what's coming your way. So Darrell, would you seriously consider candidates from outside of the Federal Reserve System?
Most definitely. As stated earlier, there is no one perfect background. So I think our ideal candidate is an individual who has a breadth of experience, reach, and relationships across a broad spectrum, both in their professional accomplishments as well as their geographic presence and whatnot. So I think that's going to be very, very important for someone to have the vast and broad experience that they're able to bring to the 4th District.
Thanks, Darrell. Heidi, would you add anything to that?
You know, I think that no matter where this person comes from, the important piece is that the 4th District, we're such a friendly environment. We will adopt anybody that comes from in or out. And that's not what's important. I think Darrell hit it right, that what's important is that this person has, you know, the intellectual curiosity, has really the needs of the 4th District in mind, that they're willing to travel and be really that megaphone, as I said earlier, for the 4th District. So, you know, again, I think it's less important where they come from than what they are going to provide.
Thanks, Heidi. So, John, another question came in. Are the Fed's new ethics rules causing any issues with finding interested candidates?
So I would say in many ways, I would say no. As Heidi has pointed out, this is a truly unique opportunity to serve the nation. It does not come across often, and in many ways it is aspirational. It certainly has helped in many ways, in that the guidelines, as strict as they are, help tightly focus leading candidates and to make sure that they, you know, that this is not just something they can do in passing, that they're truly committed to this process. So by the time we get folks who raise their hand, who we've reached out to, who you have submitted as nominations, and they get to the point where they're meeting the search committee, they are willing to make often a very significant financial and even leadership sacrifice in order to serve you, the members of the 4th Reserve District.
Thanks, John. They're truly public servants doing the public's work. So thank you for that. Well, we haven't had any more questions come in. I'm excited with the questions we did receive. And so what I'm going to do is ask John and Darrell, and then Heidi will bring us home to give any closing comments that they might have. So John, to you, and then Darrell, and then Heidi, you'll wrap us up. Thank you, guys, and thank you for this opportunity and for your great information you shared with people today.
Thank you very much, Margie. What I would encourage those of you who are watching and those of you who may be watching later or maybe refer to this by others is to think aspirationally. The 4th District is dynamic. It's played a central role in the establishment of the Federal Reserve for the last 110 years. But we've had a great leader, Loretta Mester, but this role is focused on the future. Think of the future aspirations for this district, the type of economic environment and participation you would like for your family, if you have children, the people you care about. This is an opportunity for you to think big and deliver big for this district. So we encourage you all to engage and to share with us your highest and best ideals so that they are manifest in the next leader of the 4th Reserve District.
And Margie, I'm so incredibly honored to be a participant in this process here. Having been an entrepreneur in the 4th District for 20 plus years, I never realized until I got involved with the Fed the impact that it has on what I do, whether it's my banking relationships, whether it's supply chain activity, whether it's labor. Never realized how impactful that the Fed, or the role that the Fed played in that. So having now been on the other side, it's a privilege, and it's also so very important. And as we mentioned earlier, every individual is impacted by what the Fed does. So I think my parting words are, feel free, please get engaged, put your input in, because you do have a voice, and your voice will be heard through our various forums, and as we go through this very, very important search. So again, I say thank you, and I say please don't be silent as we pursue this endeavor here. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Darrell, for your great thoughts. I really want to, first of all, thank everyone that has tuned in today to giving us your attention and your time to really be able to hear what we're looking for in our 4th District Federal Reserve Bank president. It's been an honor to host this forum for our community. I hope that you heard some things that either inspired you or you know somebody in your network or a colleague that you think might serve our district in this really important role. To remind you to please visit clevelandfed.org/presidential search for more information. And we certainly look forward to continuing to hear from you on candidate recommendations and any additional questions. Our website is open. We're actively looking at it, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. So thank you for your time today.